Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Yvonne and you landed on Ginger Chick Rehab, where I love to take pre-loved thrift store found items, secondhand items, and make them over for you all. So in today's video, I am painting some primitives. I have some wooden items that are in much need of a paint job. So yes, a few years ago, I got a grouping of bowls, and this is just a few of them, that were just worse for wear. Just a little bit of sanding, oiling was not going to bring them back to life. The sad story is that they had a top coat of some sort on them that has wore off, that really did not do these beautiful old bowls justice. And you can see that there was some water damage. So they just, even if I sanded them, they're not going to clean up and be pretty bowls like that pretty aged patina by any means. And did I say I have to sand them? Yes, I do. I need to get that leftover top coat as much as I can to be smooth. I don't know if I'm going to get it all off, but I need it to be sanded down and to be smoother. And surprisingly, you can do this with an orbital sander. It just takes some angles, takes some time, hitting those sides. Yes, you can hand sand it, but that's a lot on your hands and your wrist. So luckily the orbital sander will work with different angles. I have 80 grit on there because I really want to try to get most of that top coat, the shiny top coat that is no longer really adhered to at least less than 50% of the bowls anymore. And then there is actually some cut marks, like that things have been chopped up in these bowls, and that middle stain is there to stay. It's all the way through. It's not coming off by any means, but as I said, it's just a whole bunch of getting into the angles and just working little by little. I'm using an 80 grit sandpaper, and when I feel like I need to change it out because it's got all the top coat on it, I will get a new piece. But that's just, yeah, I really, these have good bones. They're not broken, they're not cracked, so they're definitely worth saving. And really, that top coat wants to come off. It's just really not even adhered to this dry wood anymore whatsoever. I wish there was a maker's mark, or you could tell somebody like hand carved these. I don't know what their story is. Usually a lot of primitive bowls, they don't have a shiny top coat on here. They usually just are waxed or oiled or something like that, and then they age and have beautiful patina. That's not the case of this set of bowls. Honestly, I've had these sitting in my stash for a good 2 years now, trying to decide what I wanted to do with them. You know, you just have to wait until you get inspiration, because they, like I said, they have good bones, but I just wasn't sure, like, are they worth saving? Should I clean them up? What should I do? So sometimes you just sit stuff off to the side in your stash, in your hoard, however you want to call it. And I know people look at it thinking, oh, you have so much stuff that you need to do and work on. But you just, sometimes you buy something and you're like, yes, this is automatically, I know what I want to do with it. And then sometimes there's those times you're like, I got to think on this for a while. What would do this item the best? You know, so this is finally the case where inspiration hit for some of these bowls, and I'm like, yes, this is what I want to do with them. I knew either way, whatever I was going to do with them, I needed to have to sand them. And no, they did not sand to be pretty by any means. there's the staining, there's still some cut marks in there, but the thing I was trying to do is trying to get most of the top coat that it was at least scuff sanded, or it was like evened out, smooth to the touch. You didn't feel the bumpiness. If there is, it's okay, because for the final look, it's not going to really matter. But I wanted to make sure that my paint was going to grab onto them, so I'm just going to get them cleaned up with some Dawn dish soap and some hot water. Try not to thoroughly soak them by any means, because all the water is going to do is just open that wood up and swell it. So I don't want to drench these. So while my bowls are drying, I do have some other primitives. Some shaker style firkin sugar buckets, whatever you want to call it. So that one is on the newer side. This one's definitely a newer reproduction. It's not even basically real wood, it's resin. And it's a little bit on the dirty side, but I thought if I could paint it, I could make it look 100% better. And then this one is a little bit, got a little age to it. It's got some brokenness to it. And I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to fix that brokenness. And then for some reason, it has a hole. I don't know what the hole is for. I don't know what its story is for. But I want to give it that primitive vibe. Well, they are kind of a primitive type anyway. So, okay, so let's see what we can do with this split wood. So I know I'm going to have to glue it with some wood glue, and I've got some Titebond quick and thick wood glue in my little handy dandy bottle that, y'all, if you don't have one of these to put your Titebond glue in, you need it, because I was so tired of like tapping my bottle on trying to get all the glue to be down, and this is just pressured that you constantly have flow. Now the angles are not the easiest, and I could have done a syringe, but you know, why make things easy? So I just need to get enough glue in there, and I need to figure out how to get it clamped. Like, okay, so I've tried 2 clamps now, and that's the bottom's not going to help me reach that. Tape I don't think would be strong enough to hold that piece of wood down, you know, so I'll figure it out. I think I'm just going to have to use a bigger clamp, not even worry about holding it with tape. Now that I've messed with it enough that that this is my husband Chris's. He always knows exactly what to do, and sometimes I've got to go through a process and figure out what actually works. So I'm going to get one of the big clamps and then make sure that I'm right on that tip, put the most pressure on the tip of the brake, and then just tighten that right up. And then as I'm tightening it, the glue will spill out, which is perfectly fine, and I'll just wipe that off. But I like quick and thick because usually within an hour I can go on and work on my project. So hopefully this glues it down the way I want it to. So now let's move on to this sweet little piece. Now, so the lid is wood. The body of this little shaker firkin sugar box is resin. The handle is metal. You got a little bit of wood on there. But I just felt like if I can paint this better, I can make this so much better. So that is my goal. But I'm going to have to go ahead and sand it a little bit, trying to give paint something to grab onto. That is after I clean the inside. I don't know. It almost looks like coffee grounds. Like somebody might have kept coffee grounds in the bottom of this, but I don't know. You know, when you buy things pre-loved, you just never know what their story is and what somebody else used it for. So for all of these, I am going with a primitive vibe. So I've got some colors. Yes, we are doing colors today. We are doing primitive colors. And I love the Sweet Pickins line. I love the primitive colors and the texture that I'm going to be able to achieve with the milk paint. So I'm starting off with cherry pie. And I'm going to do a bowl and one of the shaker boxes. So I have 6 items I'm going to do. So I'm going to do 2 of each. So if you've not used milk paint, it is equal parts powder to equal parts water. You stir the mixture for 2 minutes and then you set it off the side and let it thicken up. I absolutely love this paint. Go ahead and mix all three of the colors that I'm going to be using for this video up right now. So my next color I'm going to be using is Curry, which is a wonderful mustard yellow color. Oh, be still my heart. I really love this color. I don't get to use it as often as I would like to. I always think an item has to kind of tell you what it wants to be, and it's hard because yellow is one of those colors that an item really does have to speak to you about, yes, please paint me curry. My last color I'm going to mix up, I'm going to go ahead and do a blue color, and this is Ocean. And that's a color that I don't use a lot is blue. Just like the curry, though, the item kind of has to like, hey, you know, Yvonne, paint me, paint me blue. I don't force a color to be on an item. I really do kind of wait for my inspiration to hit, and when I'm looking at an item, how I can envision it in what color, or if it needs to be natural, or if you need to leave it wood. I really don't think you can, for me anyway, I can't be forced to just paint a color. That's probably why I never do consignment pieces, because my vision and somebody else's vision may not always be the same. So now the cherry pie was the first one I mixed up, so I want to make sure that after it has set and thickened up, I need to stir it up yet again to make sure that I got all the yummies and that the consistency is pretty much the same. So I did not seal these bowls in with anything. I want that paint to soak right into this extremely dry wood. So I'm going to go right on and I'm going to start painting the little firkin buckets. And I just know painting this one, even though it looks so cheap right now, I think by painting it and just painting it all the same color, including the inside, is just going to make it look more elegant. It's going to definitely look more rich looking by painting the entire thing, including the handle, the lid, and everything on this is going to get painted the same color. So now I want to paint the inside of this. I'm going to paint the inside of all of them because I think that's just going to take them to the next level, give them an aged look, especially since they don't have, this doesn't have a lid, and I don't want that to look new. I want this to look like it's an older piece. So not always the funnest of painting the inside, but since I left the wood raw, the paint really is just going to soak in. Now I'm not ready to take the clamp off quite yet, but there's enough of that wood showing that I can start painting on this, especially painting the inside. I'm going to have to flip and flop it to get every piece of this painted anyway, so why not paint a little bit of it while it's still curing with the glue. So now I'm moving on to my second coat. So I'm going to go ahead and mist the bowl a little bit with the mister bottle, just ever so slightly, to help my second paint coat go on nice and smooth. So I don't know if you have to do the mister by any means, but I find like when I go to do my second coat of milk paint, sometimes my paint will start to grab, and I feel like it makes it so that I don't have quite as smooth of a paint job. But if I just add that little mister of a water, my brush just has freedom to move back and forth, and it just makes it just a smoother paint job. For me, I like to get my 2 coats on the one side first, then flip it over, and then I'll get the other 2 coats on the bottom. Now, sometimes I might do it differently. It just all depends on my assembly line that I have going on today. There's not really any wrong way of doing it. It's just whatever works for you. The bowls were pretty straightforward, but when it comes to these firkins, I really wanted to make sure that I got the bottom covered, the sides covered. I flipped them over so I can get this top area, and then anywhere that banding is around, I want to make sure that I got all that covered along with the handle. So there's like a whole bunch of little different angles that I needed to go on to make sure that the backside and where the handle attaches to the firkin itself, I want to make sure that I have all that covered. It's been about an hour, so let's see as we say a prayer to see if it is attached, and it is. It is good to go, and since I'm painting it, I didn't worry about anything. I could have pre-sanded this one, but I chose not to. There is a little bit of a top coat on it, but I want it to have an aged look. So I don't think it's going to interfere with my final design look. So does anybody have any ideas what the hole at the bottom would have been there for? I don't know, like a butter churn, no, because the butter would fall out. Like, why is there a hole in the bottom of this? It doesn't look like it's a new hole. It looks like it's been there. Just curiosity if anybody has any ideas. So now it's time to start sanding. I've got 2 coats on the bottom, 2 coats on the top. It's looking pretty good. So I'm doing a 150 because I know that this paint soaked in. I know that it is good and on there, but I want to distress this piece. I want it to look like it's been old and it's been used and it has some age to it, and I want some of that natural wood to come back through. So we're going to start off with the rim of the bowls first, really working it down so that I can get those sharp corners, which aren't really sharp anymore because I wanted to round them off a little bit. I think rounding off sharp corners like that really helps a piece to look older than it is, because wood would have wore. The more you touched it, the more you used it, those edges over time would not have been sharp. They would have been softened and rounded just because of all the touching and handling that happened to them over time. And then I'm going to go right in the inside, and I want to make sure that I get everything sanded down. So I can switch over to a 220 sandpaper if I feel like it's taking too much of the paint off. But like I said, I want these to look like they've been used and old, so I don't mind it. And it's a weird little angle when you're doing a bowl that you have to sand at. But this milk paint just sands so nice, and I know when I go to do my final design, if I don't get every piece of it sanded and I go to do a finished look on it, I can tell where I didn't sand it. So I need to make sure that I get everything sanded. So when it comes to the bottom, it's the same as the sides of the bowl. I want to make this look like it has been moved around on a surface a ton of times. So I want to make sure I sand that down so some of the wood is showing on the bottom also. My blue firkin was a little bit more needy, especially where the metal was concerned. Even though I scuff sanded it wanted a third coat. It didn't really want to necessarily adhere to that. And actually on the resin piece, unlike the wooden pieces where the paint soaked in, the resin piece I kind of have some crackling and creasing going on, which is for me a good thing. But I have some little areas I need to touch up and let that dry a little bit more before I can sand that one. And then of course I've got a lid that I need to go ahead and do the other side on. Like I said, I painted the metal, I painted everything the same. Remember the cherry pie bucket I did not pre-sand. So let's see how this sands. I want to bring out the detail of that beautiful binding. Oh, I love, that's one thing that attracts me, I think, to the thought of the Firkin sugar buckets, how they are put together. And my glue job is holding together. Yay! That's always a happy day. So yes, I'm going to go ahead and distress all the edges so I can give it some age, and where the staples are, I'll kind of sand on that a little bit too. And then I'll sand the rest of the piece and make sure that I take some steel wool to make sure that everything is sanded. Like I said earlier, if you don't get everything sanded and you go to do your finished look, you're finishing on it, you'd be able to tell where you didn't sand it. It will definitely take my wax differently. Now to wax these pieces, I'm going to be using Jolie's black wax. It just happens to be my favorite wax when I want to darken the paint color that I am using. So, and then to rub it all in, I like to use a clear wax, and this Homestead natural wax is just awesome. So it's a bit scary when you start adding that black wax in that bowl. You think, oh my goodness, what is she doing? But once you add some of that clear and really work it into the paint and work it in together, it just transforms this cherry pie milk paint into a totally different color. At first you're like, oh, that color, it's, I don't know. But once that you add that black wax and rub it in with that clear, look at that rich, primitive color. Oh my goodness. And I love that it did not take perfectly. That's why I didn't want to sand these bowls like this perfect, pristine, because I wanted them to look old. I wanted them to look primitive, and oh, do they ever. And then if you thought that was an amazing transformation, wait till you see the black wax and the clear rubbing on the curry color. Oh, I if somebody would told me when I first started playing with waxes and milk paint that that's how it was going to look, I would have been like, yeah, really? And no, it is. Oh, you can even see the wood grain in this one. Oh, love it. Wait, we have more. We have the ocean color that we need to transform and darken up. So you would get a totally different hue if I would use like the antiquing glaze or the aging wax. You would totally get a different look. So if you're going for more of a brown, you totally just go ahead and use a brown wax. But for some reason, I just always I'm a fan of that black wax for some reason. It's just we like what we like, right, y'all? I'm going to do the same process on the firkin buckets. Now, when it comes to the firkin buckets, and we have the binding, we have the handle, we have like the in between the slats. When I go to rub it on, the black and then the natural, the same process, you don't want it to look like it's a new painted job by missing anything. So I will take a little detailed brush in by the handle, in by the binding. Some of the binding is lifting just a little bit, just how it is. You want to make sure that you get that black wax, your mixture of your wax, in those little crevices, or that will totally make it look like, oh, well, somebody just painted this, painted the piece. It's all about those little extra steps, those little extra detail works that you do. Well, as I'm finishing up here, this one I'm not going to actually sand. All I'm going to go ahead and do is steel wool. If I sanded it, there's nothing, no wood going to be showing because it's resin. But I do want to make sure that my milk paint is nice and smooth. And if some of the paint comes off, it comes off, and it's just how it's going to be. But yes, when I use steel wool, I always use the finest grit wool there is, which is the 4-0 steel wool, the finest grit. And luckily the milk paint's on there and it's not really coming off, but you can see that crackling, that crazing that it did, and it was worth doing a third coat to make sure that everything was covered. So thank you so much for watching today's video, and what did you think? Yes, we painted 3 different colors and I absolutely loved each and every one of them. They definitely had that primitive type of vibe, and it's just you kind of have to trust the process, because you might think, oh, I don't really like this paint, you know, but then once you add waxes, the waxes really change the color of it all. And if you are part of our YouTube family, thank you so much. And if you are new and you're checking out this channel for the first time and you liked what you saw, please hit that subscription button along with the notification bell so you know we uploaded a new video. And we will see you next time, guys. And you can see what we're up to. Bye!